hidden focus. All right, asking conservatives to conserve anything. Well, my friend, that is a bridge too far. This we cannot do. Click the links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, join the Telegram, the Gab TV too. Somebody just paid for a subscription for that, for the video hosting. Thanks for that. Or Sport Channel, become a member of this channel, or on Coffee, the various other links. There's crypto too, if you're of that mindset. It's the feds. The feds are everywhere. It's like, now I understand what those grizzled old timers were talking about. The revenue man making moonshine out in the woods. Now I understand why they hated the federal government, because just the pit of a hive of scum and villainy. So yeah, asking conservatives to do something. oh, you sweet summer child. I know he doesn't really expect the conservatives to do anything. So is Disney the great Satan? Yeah. I mean, those folks over in the Sandy region are right about a lot of stuff. They say America is Satan. It's like, not exactly. America has been subverted by Satanists for sure. But no, not us. We're awesome. But Disney, yeah, Disney's the great Satan for sure. Enjoy the acceleration. I'm thinking like Comicsgate World, the concept of Comicsgate, because you start to think back to the concept of Comicsgate. One Richard C. Meyer of Iron Sights and Jawbreakers fame, with the fantastic Ivy Canales, he kind of created something. It could have ramifications, repercussions. It is something more important than just some guy who was reading comics and saw how bad they got and figured like, oh, you know what, I could probably do something better. I'll crowdfund it through making a YouTube channel. And it turns out he's good at both, making YouTube videos and also making comics. But think about what that is, a rejection, obviously, of the corporate mainstream propaganda, but it's also something bigger. It's saying, oh, the mainstream has gotten so bad that we can create something to go around it. It's an interesting example of a small businessman, an individual, going around this big giant corporate horror. And one time left wing would be totally on board with that. It's like, it's to watch the heel turn of the left wing over the past 20, 30 years, to suddenly support and be marching hand in hand with Bank of America and CNN and looking at the people in Comicsgate who are just, a bunch of small time people making their own comics. And, don't get me wrong, Ethan Van Sciver's doing millions in sales, but in the big picture, even a few $1 million in sales is a small time compared to these. And you got left-wing people who are like, oh yeah, these guys are the enemy. Some Cyberfrog and Artie Bear and all these, these guys are the bad guys. Clint Stoker of Downcast Comics, he's the bad guy, and Douglas Ernst, what's that comic called? Soul Finder, I think. Like these are the bad guys because they're making independent comics and they're not insanely full of woke propaganda. But think about what that is. The concept of you make something that is, I'm not, it's a little bit, I don't want to say pure and natural. It's just better. It's just entertainment. It's pop culture. It's telling stories through the visual medium. It's not, I'm not saying it's Shakespeare or anything like that, but it's something, a return to something more natural and normal, away from the godless, filthy Luciferian parasites who control the mainstream narrative in comics. These Heather Antos I need to crowdfund a computer. Like, I understand if you're doing video editing or whatever the hell she's doing, you're not just talking about a baseline computer that I would crowdfund. She's talking about something. It's probably pretty serious, I assume. So I get that, but really. And I get you don't want to pay for yourself, but what is it? How indicative is it of the financial situation of the industry that either you don't have the money to just go pay $4,000 for a high-dollar computer, or your employer can't pay for some of it, for all of it? You go, oh yeah, the computer caught fire. It's a $3,500 high-tech video edit, whatever she does. I don't know what editors do in comics, but you're editing high bit rate images, I assume. It's like, oh, your employer would be like, okay, $3,500. Here's half of it. We'll pay for half of it, and you pay for the other half. How about that? Or we'll just, I don't know, we'll pay for all of it, and I don't know, or like pay for some of it, half of it, and like loan you the rest of the money, and then you can just take it out every month, something like that. I mean, it's like, oh no, she had to crowdfund it. It's funny, she took that tweet down because she was harassed by Comicsgate and Ethan Van Sciver. It's like, yeah, but you did put the tweet up there. I mean, Mags Visaggio and Joe Glass, Mags Visaggio was just flat out begging for money. Joe Glass was actually offering to sell his comics. He wasn't begging for money. He was saying, go buy my comics. So credit to him. I kind of like Joe Glass. I kind of want to like Joe Glass. Where the Mags Visaggio and the Heather Ancestors of the world are just, those people are like, I don't think we're ever going to see eye to eye with a lot of that. Okay, I don't know where I was going with that. So Disney is the great Satan for sure. So now the family-friendly Disney supports trans kids and deleting babies. Like, what do you think? What is it, fetus? Latin or Greek? Like, what do you think the Latin for fetus is? It's baby. It's just a human being. Well, it's not so family-friendly if you're deleting the next generation of chillins. Disney has brainwashed. It has brain parasites that have turned them into lizard people. They are evil people selling propaganda that bears little resemblance to the old Disney. And really, once I started thinking about it, I've been thinking about so many things. Being on Telegram and Gab, Odyssey and Bit Chute, talking to a real diversity of people, getting exposed to different ideas. That's the one thing about you kick people off of Twitter is like, so Twitter became a left-wing echo chamber and Gab, Telegram became a right-wing echo chamber, which like you would have been better off just having like Twitter be a free speech place, like guaranteed by federal law, like all social media. You would have had open discourse. Instead, you've got a greater divergence, which, may you live in interesting times. And the thing is, the more I think about Disney, even at the beginning, I know he was a little bit more based than current Disney is comfortable with. It was still kind of just another example of commercial poison. A young country slowly building something. It takes hundreds or thousands of years for a country, sprung up out of nothing to develop itself into something. It's like it would have taken another 500 or 1,000 years, but they changed all that thanks to Hart Celler in 1965. So it kind of reminds me of the slow subversion of Christmas songs over in the 1940s and 50s. Everything will be subverted into this commercial zone trash. If you don't stop them and trebuchet them into the sun, I guess you'd have to use an electromagnetic railgun or train or something to hit escape velocity. I'd like to see that developed. Electromagnetic train. Let's get this thing up to 100 kilometers a second. It would just look like a laser beam going out of the atmosphere. God, that would be awesome. So everything in America is plastic commercial zone. Bring back folk music, rodeos, and barn raisings. I mean, the concept of national versus local. Supporting corporate whore Disney or companies like it are the problem. It is a globalist disease that spreads its filth. The way to delete it is to simply divest yourself of it. I'm doing some editing on the fly. We need some sort of movement away from these just degeneracy, because companies like Disney are finally going mask off in the past, 5 or 10 years. The swapping out of characters was one thing. It's like, well, that's not going to change. But, advocating to mutilate kids and then delete them in the womb, I think that's a bridge too far for a lot of people. Like, you want to race swap some characters. Either it'll sell it or it won't sell, but it doesn't cause outrage. It's like people just slowly kind of dip out of that. But the trans kids and the BLT stuff and CRT, the cultural Marxism, the Frankfurt School, the Saul Alinsky's, the Moses Mordecai Levy's stuff, I think people are slowly waking up to this. Social media is in one form or another, everyone is allowed a voice on social media, the left-wing propaganda, and then alt social media and Gab. Like this Gab is just blowing up. It's somebody's pouring oxygen into that engine. And, external forces are also stepping on the gas, so it is what it is. People don't want to give up Disney, and it was fun for a while, but, actually, as I look back at Disney, even from the beginning, it was always going to be a corporate subversive vehicle, and it was kind of inevitable for America, a company to give rise to anything else simply because the country was so young. I mean, Disney was always a plastic fuck doll for Coomers. And I realize this is deck chairs on the Titanic, but we need a movement away from these globalist parasites and a return to traditional European stories and folklore, which oddly enough Disney was based on very loosely. But, you know, in a purely commercial sense, it took the nucleus of those stories and was just retelling them, and then it just went off the deep end into just being nothing more than globalist propaganda. And the thing is, returning to that folk story universe is not difficult as it sounds, because the stories are obviously out there. But the thing is, only we can tell them. Anything coming from Hollywood is going to go through this, you know, poison subversive machine. We need more based, degeneracy-free stories and entertainment. Kids' stories teach kids how to model their world, and it molds kids into, you know, future adults. We went from European folk stories about raising families and protecting the Volk to abortions, trans kids, and sacrifices to Moloch. In 50 years, you have seen a complete subversion and inversion of the nation from a nation that would have developed into something other than that, you know, 1965. It would, you know, what that future right-hand path would have led to, Shangri-La, Wakanda, I don't know. I mean, it would have been obviously a different nation. It would have been it would have eventually progressed into an ultra first world nation like, you know, Japan, South Korea, Sweden, those kind of nations. And instead, it's kind of has taken the left-hand sinister path into something that will never attain what it could have attained, which is it's weird to say, but, you know, people back then were looking at it, and they knew back then. They tried to warn us, but we just didn't listen. It's turned into nothing more than, you know, an economic zone controlled by big tech, Disney and Hollywood. The big tech thing is really Disney and Hollywood. Disney Hollywood controls a narrative and propagandizes the kids, which is why you have to get your kids away from them. But big tech actually controls elections, which can directly interfere in that regard. So raising kids free of this mega corporate filth, with books and films that are just not pure globalist filth, you can't raise based nationalist kids in a globalist propaganda environment. You got to get them away from that. And the concept of Comicsgate, going around mainstream propaganda and creating your own stories, that good or bad, you know, all stories in some way are going to be propaganda, or they're going to, you know, they are what they are, but whatever you do is going to be better than what Disney or some Hollywood, you know, Netflix, Cartoon Network. Hey, there's a transgender beaver. Oh, she has scars on her chest because you had a children's cartoon for kids where the beaver got surgery to remove her breasts, and that's what you're teaching kids. Oh. Please don't Fed post in the comments. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I guess I'm talking to myself too. Please don't Fed post. It's a challenge. It is a challenge these days. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, support channel on Coffee, and I will see you guys all next episode.